Well, hello everyone. A very warm welcome to this webinar on how to score a 51 on GMAT Quant. I'll be your host. My name is Arvind. I'll take you through certain strategies and techniques which will help you score that perfect score on GMAT Quant. So, welcome to this webinar. Good evening to all of you. Just so you know, this webinar will go on for about 60 to 65 minutes. So I would like all of you to block the next 1 hour of your schedule to get the maximum out of this webinar. So I would recommend that you keep your mobile phones on silent if possible, and probably have all the writing material that you require handy for you to probably solve questions, because there are a few questions that I want to take up to put forth certain points that I'd like to make. So have your writing material handy, and have your questions in place. We will have a question and answer session at the end of let's say 45 to 50 minutes. There'll be a good 10 to 15 minutes for you to uh, uh, to to ask any questions that you have for me about how to score a 51 on Quant, right? So have your questions handy and in place. Um, just a quick introduction of who we are. I'm sure a lot of you would have heard about Crackverbal, but not all of you may know the exact details. So we were founded in 2006. From 2006 for the last 13 years and a half, we have mentored about 5,000 plus students, and we have clocked about a million coaching hours. Our students come from almost 37 different countries. So the the underlying philosophy of Crackverbal is to help students get connected with people who love teaching. So I like to make a statement here that I'm a teacher here by choice, and not because of any other circumstance, right? Uh, I do enjoy teaching. Uh, so this is who I am. I'm a mechanical engineer by qualification. I've been teaching for the last 14 years, either in the capacity of a full-time faculty or a visiting faculty at different test prep companies. And here I am in Crackverbal for the last 2 years almost. I've been teaching GMAT and GRE Quant, right? I'm also an automobile enthusiast. I'm also an avid cricket follower. That's what I am. And yeah, that's about it about me. And I hope this gives you some perspective about who is talking to you, and where does he work and what we do as a company, right? So without further ado, I would like to begin here. Um, I'd like to use a couple of minutes to probably make a few points and tell you certain things that I feel are really essential for you to hit that Quant 51 on the GMAT. As you know, Quant 51 is like currently the highest score that you can obtain on the GMAT. No one has ever obtained more than a 51 on Quant, and it's therefore safe to say that it's a coveted score, right? Not too many people hit it, and that's probably the reason why it represents the highest percentile. But just so you know, I'm not sure how many of you know, but this is a fact that a 51 on Quant does not actually represent 100 percentile when compared to, let's say, a 51 on verbal. Let's say you end up getting a 51 on verbal, you'll be in the 100th percentile, you'll be in the top percentile. But that is not the case with a 51 on Quant. A 51 on Quant actually represents about 97 percentile, right? Now, that's the good thing about the Quant 51. It should tell you that there are a lot of people, at least a lot more people getting a Quant 51 compared to a verbal 51, right? So it's definitely in the realms of possibility if you have the right kind of strategies, right approach, and if you have your fundamentals in place, right? And if you have somebody who can mentor you, give you the right advice at the right time uh, to help you get to that 51 on Quant, right? All these are essential ingredients. But I also want to tell you guys that there is a little small element of luck also involved in getting a 51 on quant. Um, I'm not being spiritual or philosophical here, but I'm just quoting facts, right? You also need that small luck factor to go your way, because I will tell you exactly why I make this statement when we come to a later stage. But keep in mind that sometimes if that luck factor doesn't go your way, it's very hard on you, because you'll be downgraded from a 51 to 50, right? Very, very quickly. Okay, that's the that's how thin the margin is between a 50 and a 51, right? So therefore, you will have to be at your absolute best on that given day, regardless of what happens on the test, if you want to get to that coveted score of 51 on quant. Okay, it also means that you'll have to be exceptionally strong at almost all quant concepts, and you cannot afford to ask questions like, okay, can I leave out a certain area because I'm really not that great at it, right? You'll have to make sure that you strengthen all your areas of quant, and leave nothing to chance, or leave at least close to nothing for chance, right? That's what you need to do. um, in terms of content, I feel sticking as much as possible to official content is the key. uh, you all of you may know that the GMAT has released the advanced GMAT question set recently, right? In the last 5 months. I think it was introduced sometime in September, right? That's a good resource for you to have access to those 700 level questions. But from the perspective of a quant faculty, I feel that a few questions in that book, I really did not feel there were 700 plus level questions. But as I told you, it's from my perspective, right? As somebody who's taught quant for the last 14 years, I'm expected to feel that way, right? But there were quite a few questions that were really challenging in terms of concept, strategies, traps. So this is also something that I want to tell you, that getting a 51 on quant is not only about getting the 700 level questions, right? It's a mix of so many things, some of which I'll cover in my uh, webinar today in the slideshow. So don't have misconception that if I get all the 700 level questions right, I'll get over 51. It may happen, but it also means that you have to get some of the other things in place as well. Okay. Uh, yeah, so that's about it. I think this is what I wanted to say to start off, to kind of set uh, uh, things in perspective, right? So that you don't start off with some common misconceptions in your mind. I hope this has cleared some of them. Um, so um, to continue with whatever I'm saying, I told that getting a 51 on quant has a little bit of a luck element involved. I thought I'll put a screenshot of an ESR, which is an enhanced score report that you can order once you take a test, right? So the screenshot that you see on your screen is that of an ESR of somebody who got a 51 on quant, right? And if you look at it, you will only have one impression in your mind, that it's almost picture perfect, right? He or she is at the 96th percentile overall in quant. You can't ask for more than that. Um, on problem solving, he probably made a mistake because his percentile is lower. Data sufficiency is at the 95th percentile. Arithmetic, he's at the 95th percentile. He probably made a mistake in algebra or geometry, one of the sections, right? This is how your ESR will look if you end up getting a 51. It'll be almost picture perfect, right? It'll be close to perfection, as perfect as possible, because 51 is like the perfect score that you can expect on quant. Now, the reason why I said getting a 51 on quant is a little bit of luck involved is because if you look at your screen now, this is the next part of the ESR, which tells what is the percentage of questions that the student answered correct over the 4 quarters. Just to inform some of you who may not know this, who may have not gone through the analysis of an ESR, there are 31 questions right now in the quant section of the GMAT, right? Out of which 3 questions are experimental, which means 28 questions are questions which are scored and which will contribute to your raw GMAT score of 51, right? Now, the 28 questions are divided into 4 quarters, all right? Each quarter containing 7 questions. Now, if you look at the first quarter of the student, he's got every question right, which means his accuracy rate is 100%. And therefore, that's something that you need to take out of this. The learning for you should be that in the first 5 to 6 questions, you need to spend a little more time and not try to adhere to the 2 minute per question thumb rule, right? Think about it. If there's an easy question, you will not wait till 2 minutes to mark the answer, right? Similarly, if there's a difficult question, you should not restrict yourself to solving it within 2 minutes. Even if you take 3 minutes on a very hard question, as long as you get it right, that is what will contribute to your accuracy rate improving, right? Now, on the second quarter, if you look at 71% and 29%, from your knowledge of percentages, you will recognize quickly that 71.4% is 5 by 7, right? And 28.57% is 2 by 7. So that's exactly what these percentages represent, right? 71% is 5 out of 7 and 29% is 2 out of 7, which means this student has got a 51 by getting 2 questions wrong, okay? And the 2 questions have incidentally come in the second quarter. They probably could have come in the third quarter as well. I don't think it would have made that greater difference in his score. He would have ended up getting a 51 anyways, right? So by now, having analyzed a lot of ESRs, we know for a fact that if you have to get a 51 on quant, we know for a fact that you have to make, you can make, I'm not saying you have to make 2 mistakes. And what I mean to say is you can, you have the tolerance of making 2 mistakes. Sometimes we have seen that people making 2 mistakes have got a 50. There have been exceptions like that. There have been cases where students made 1 mistake and got a 51, but the second mistake downgraded them to a 50. Okay, and who knows? You never know why that second mistake happened. If the second mistake was the result of a careless calculation error, or if the student overlooked certain aspects of the question, or he was just rushing through, or by fate, it was a super hard question and he or she was not able to crack it within a given time frame, right? And he got it wrong. So that is the sliver of a difference you have between a 51 and a 50, right? And that's what I meant by saying sometimes on a given day, right? You need to have that luck going your way in terms of you being at your best, also not getting that super hard question that you're not able to crack within the given time, right? You also need that little bit of luck, the fortune favors the brave kind of philosophy working for you, right? If you look at the next slide, right? This is also an ESR, but the ESR of somebody who's got a 50, right? You do realize the difference. It's just 1 point, right? But understand that 50, as you see here, represents the 86th percentile. That's the challenge on quant. Every point decrement causes the percentile to reduce almost by 10 to 12 percentage points. Okay. and therefore you can see that this ESR is not all that perfect. It's not completely flawless, right? You can see that problem solving has taken a fair hit, arithmetic has taken a fair hit, whereas data sufficiency is fairly good, right? And that is because the number of mistakes that the student has made is more, right? In the first quarter, his first quarter is hardly comparable to the first quarter of the previous student. The previous student had a 100% strike rate on the first quarter, whereas this student here has made two mistakes. But because his uh, accuracy rate in the first quarter is, let's say, above 70%, his graph has gone up. And what may have happened is the student has course corrected and done really very well in the second and the third quarter. Uh, by which time he would have realized that he's probably overspent time on some questions. And what could have happened on the last quarter is he was probably left with less time on a few questions. He may have guessed some answers, or he may have overlooked some information, rushed through some questions, and made mistakes. So those are the two mistakes that you can see here. You can see in the last quarter, right? So there are two mistakes here, and there are two mistakes here. So I have four questions which were wrong. So you can see clearly that the margin for error is very less when you look at a score of 51 and 50, right? You need to be at, as I said, at your absolute best on that particular given day, and also maybe pray to providence that luck works your way so that you don't get that hard question and you end up making only one mistake. All right, that's how 51 pans out. Um, so, how do you get to a 51? Is it a function of your preparation alone? I would I would say yes. It's definitely a function of how you're prepared, what sort of questions you have solved, uh, how long you have been preparing, and what sort of advice you have taken in terms of your preparation. It's a function of all this. But I feel it's also a function of your mindset on that given day. You need to start off with a positive mindset. You need to start off by saying that you can hit the 51, because there have been a lot of people who have done that, right? So what goes on in the mind of somebody who scored a 51? What are the ways in which he is different, or he or she is different from somebody who scored a 50? What are the things that he or she does differently is what I think we'll have to look at in the next few slides, right? Uh, just before we go to the next slide, you can see at the bottom of your screen, there's a link to a blog that we have written. This is a blog on the analysis of an ESR. So you can go to this blog. There's a free resource. You can read through the blog, and you'll have a fair idea of an ESR can be analyzed. Right? In fact, you can go ahead and analyze the ESR yourself to a great extent. And beyond that, if you need help in analyzing it further, you can probably take the help of a GMAT quant expert or a verbal expert. Right? Um, so with that, we'll probably pick up the first question for today. I will have a timer for 2 minutes. I want all of you to attempt this question, right? And hold on to your answers till I ask you to submit your answers. Just 2 minutes, starting now. Go ahead, solve this, and tell me what your answer is. If you have been able to complete the question by now, just hold on to your answers. I'll wait for some of the others also to finish, since I've given 2 minutes. All right, guys, that's 2 minutes. So when I look at this question and see the different keywords, one of the keywords that I would look at is I need to find the median. Now I know that if I have to find the median, I'll have to order the numbers either in ascending order or descending order. So I need that basic concept, the knowledge of that basic concept. I also need to understand what primes are, right? I need to know what a prime number is. Clearly, a prime number is any positive integer other than 1 which is divisible by exactly 2 factors, that is the number itself and 1, right? So let us say I have uh, the primes arranged in ascending order like this. Now, once I've arranged the primes in ascending order, the median, because there are an even number of terms, I'll also have to take into consideration the fact that we have 6 different primes. When there are even number of values, the median will be the average of the 2 values in the middle. So the median here, let us say, is C plus D by 2. Now, you saw that this was not all that difficult a question to solve, because this is probably a sub 600 level question, right? It's not even in the 600 to 700 level range. But even a sub 600 level question demands you to know a lot of basic concepts. So it really pays for you to have your basic concepts in place in all the areas. This is clearly a problem testing you on the concept of statistics. There is a little bit of stats involved here. There's a little bit of number systems involved here, right? So think about it. If a sub 600 level question can have, let's say, questions based on, let's say, 2 concepts, obviously questions of a higher difficulty level will test you on multiple concepts. So you need to have the basics of all concepts in place, right, without exceptions. Now, which of the following could be? So could be tells me that the strategy that I need to adopt in a could be question is to try and see if I can make a statement or make an option true. Okay. So if I can say C plus D by 2 is equal to 2, it would mean C plus D is 4. But I can't have 2 prime numbers which are in the middle to give me 4, because I cannot get a 4 in any other way except by 2 plus 2. But the problem says that there are 6 different primes, so I can't even use 2 and 2, right? So because there is a could be coming in, I'm using the strategy of eliminating the option. So I can eliminate option A. Now similarly, if I say C plus D equal to 6, I don't think I have any combination of primes that will give me 6 except for 3 plus 3, which again negates the condition of different primes, right? Now, if you go deep down, you'll understand that in both the cases, you had an even number here. When you add two numbers to get an even result, either both have to be even or both have to be odd. Both being even can happen by 2 plus 2. If both are odd, I only have the other 2 combinations as 1 plus 3 or 3 plus 1, which again is not possible because 1 is not prime. Clearly, here also, odd plus odd did not work because they're not different. I can probably have 2 plus 4 or 4 plus 2, but that again defeats the purpose because 4 is not a prime number. So here, I'm not just doing a trial and error, but I'm basing my approach on the concepts of adding odd numbers and even numbers, right? So when we come to option C, we realize that C plus D will be 9.5 into 2, that is 19. Now, I have an odd number here, which means that one of these numbers has to be even, the other number has to be odd, right? Now, I have an even number that is a prime number, right? Therefore, it means that one of these numbers has to be 2. Let's say the other number is 17. But I can't have 2 here because it is in the middle of the data set, right? If this is 2, then clearly these two values have to be less than 2, but there is no prime less than 2, right? Similarly, C plus D is 25, 12.5 into 2, right? Again, the same logic approach applies. 25 is an odd number, so one of these numbers has to be 2. The other number has to be 23. But again, I can't have a 2 and a 2 in the middle because of the same reason, right? So you see that I did not even calculate that the answer is E, but I got my answer. Now let us try and see what happens with 39. So C plus D is 39 into 2, that is 78. 78 is an even number, which means both of these have to be odd or both of these have to be even. Both of these cannot be even because there's only one even prime number, that is 2, and 2 plus 2 will not give you 78, which means both the numbers have to be odd, and there are a number of combinations that will give you 78. For example, you can have 41 plus 70, or you can have, let's say, 59 and 19. So can 39 be the median? The answer is a yes, right? So on sub 600 level questions also, you need to ensure that your basics are in place because there are going to be a lot of basic concepts that you have to apply in a question, right? And even if you are short on confidence in one concept, you'll get into that vicious cycle where you don't know a concept, you try values, they don't work, you try other values, and you end up losing time, and then it furthers your stress and it becomes a vicious cycle, right? So have your basics in place in the initial phase of your preparation. Let's say for the first 1.5 months or so, 1.5 to 2 months, spend time on learning all the basic concepts, as many as you can. Okay, that's what distinguishes a 151 scorer from somebody who probably gets a 49 over 50. Okay, so let's go to the next question. This is a data sufficiency question. Okay. You can see a small grammatical error there. We're sorry about that. Go ahead and solve this question. I'll again give you 2 minutes. Hold on to your answers. Once I tell you to post your answers, you can post your answers. So here we go, guys. All right. We're almost done with a minute. We have exactly 1 minute left. So I see a lot of D's as the answer. I see a few C's. We have about 30 seconds left. Okay, I see a couple of E's. I see a few D's again. E. All right, guys, that's time up. So that's 2 minutes. So when you look at this question, it looks a fairly straightforward data sufficiency question, which again tests you on the concepts of odds and evens, right? You need to have your concepts of odds and evens in place here, right? But data sufficiency has a lot of scope to introduce traps, okay? And these traps are usually mistakes that a student will make if he does not consider the intricacies of certain concepts, right? If he is not well versed with all the concepts. Now, clearly here, if you look at the question asks you whether Z is even. Now, remember that odds and evens are defined only for integers. Okay, odds and evens are not defined for fractions. So if you look at this question, the question is actually asking you two things. It is asking you whether Z is even, but in doing so, it's also asking you if you're sure that Z is an integer. Okay, and that is something that a lot of people miss out on this question. Now, if you look at the first statement alone, I hope all of you know the rules of data sufficiency. Data sufficiency rules say that you treat the individual statements alone before combining the statements, right? So we'll have to test the individual statements alone. Now, when I say 5Z is even, it is very, very natural to think that, okay, I have 5, which is an odd number. I have Z. I don't know what Z is, but I know the final result is even. So it's very easy to conclude that Z is even, right? All the while forgetting the fact that, for example, I can have 5 multiplied by 2 by 5 give me 2, which is even. So I can have Z to be equal to 2 by 5. Now, with this value in mind, if I ask you this question, if I now ask you whether Z is even, you'll come back and say it's a no, right? Because 2 by 5 is not even an integer, right? So therefore, you'll have to have a strategy in mind. If you're plugging in, you need to have a strategy in mind. So we have a strategy here at Crackverbal for plugging in, which we call as ZoneF. It's an acronym, right? But it helps you plug in all the different types of values. So if you're someone who plugs in as your first approach, right? That's your first line of attack. Have the ZoneF acronym in mind. Z stands for 0. As far as possible, try a 0. O stands for 1. Okay. A lot of questions on the GMAT test your ability to try out 0 and 1. Okay. They are designed around 0 and 1. Okay. N stands for negative values. This is especially relevant when you come to topics like inequalities, absolute values, okay, number systems. E stands for extreme values. Again, extreme values are relevant when you are dealing with inequalities on a number line. And F, very importantly, stands for fractions, which is the part that you missed out here. Okay. If you're trying values, try all different types of values. Don't restrict yourself to integers. It's very easy to do it. Okay. Now, clearly the first statement is insufficient for us to even tell whether Z is an integer or not. Forget about telling whether Z is even or odd. Okay. Similarly, the second statement, 3Z is even, is satisfied by Z equal to 2. It is also satisfied by Z equal to 2 by 3. If z equal to 2, you'll answer the question with a yes. If z equal to 2 by 3, you'll answer the question with a no. Okay. So that is why the second statement is also insufficient. I hope all of you know the ADBCE technique, right? In terms of eliminating options. So this is C, this is D, this is E. When you find out that the first statement is insufficient, option A and option D can be ruled out. When you find out that the second statement is insufficient, option B can be ruled out. So at this stage, I know my answers are either C or E, right? Now, how do I combine? Combining statements can happen in two ways. Now, I know that 5z is even, is satisfied by z equal to 2 or 2 by 5. 3z equal to even can happen with z equal to 2 or 2 by 3. Now, when I combine both the statements, if I'm going the value way, I will take the common values which will satisfy both. Clearly, 2 by 5 will not satisfy this. 2 by 3 will not satisfy the first statement. The only common values that will satisfy are the integral values. And the integral values have to be either values like 2 or 4 or 6 or 8 and so on. Okay. The other way is, the other strategy is, if you have 5z equal to even, 3z equal to even, you can treat them like simultaneous equations. Okay, and do all the operations that you do on simultaneous equations. So you can multiply this by 2. Remember, you're trying to find out about z. So here, when you're doing this operation, your objective should be to obtain z. Okay, so 3z into 2 is 6z. So this will give me 6z equal to even. I have 5z equal to even. So 6z minus 5z is z. Even minus even is even. So I'm proving that z is a even. So I get a definite yes. So when I combine the statements, whether I follow the value approach or I follow the analysis approach, I'll end up getting a definite yes. So C is the answer here. Option D is the most common trap answer that a lot of students get into. Okay. So you saw that there were a couple of strategies that I taught you here. One was the ADBC technique, that is a strategy. And the other strategy is, when you combine statements, you need to take the common value. You need to have an approach, an algebraic approach to combine statements, right? And even when you're plugging in values, you need to have uh, a more wider view of numbers and not restrict yourself to integers. Okay. So this is another thing that a 51 scorer will do. Okay, he ensures that not only the basics, he also has strategies, different strategies to suit different situations, right? And he or she ensures that he does not keep applying the same strategy in every situation, right? It should not become mechanical for you. You need to have a clear-cut idea of which strategy to use in which situation. All right. So I hope this has kind of woken all of you up, right? Let's go to the next question. This is a PS question, a problem solving question. Go ahead. This is probably not as tough as or as tricky as the previous question. Okay. So please go ahead, solve the question. Hold on to your answers, guys. You can give your answers once you're done with 2 minutes, right? So I hope all of you have started solving. Steven, just hold on to your doubt about the previous question. Just hold on to that doubt. I'll address that doubt when I come to the Q&A section. All right. Just focus on this question that you see on the screen. Just holding on to your doubt might end up giving you that clue which will tell you what is wrong with your value. Sarthak, it's okay. This happens. It's fine. I hope it is not distracted you from your answer. All right, guys. So that's 2 minutes. So as I told you, this was a slightly easier question compared to the previous one. I know for a fact that data sufficiency is perceived by a lot of students to be difficult, and it is, right? Because for the majority of your school life, we did not even solve questions with multiple choices, right? At least that's how we learned math. We learned math the step-by-step way. And when we came to the stage where we started solving multiple choice questions, uh, I think it was a mixed feeling for some of us. For some of us, we felt, okay, the options do not make any sense for me. I'll just look at the question and solve. Some of us use the options to our advantage. But that's not the case with DS. I mean, how many of you can confidently say, okay, I solved a data sufficiency question in school? I don't think that has happened for a lot of you, right? And therefore, it's very natural to feel that data sufficiency is harder than PS, okay? And therefore, when you come to problem solving, it is also natural to let your guard down and make those silly mistakes, right? Because in your mind, you perceive, okay, this is a problem solving question. I'm in my comfort zone. I'm anyways going to get this right. Okay. And that's when you end up making those careless errors. Okay. When somebody gives us an ESR to analyze, if somebody has a very low percentile on problem solving, okay, PS questions, it's a clear indicator that he's making a lot of silly mistakes, careless mistakes. Because in problem solving, the exact answer matters. Whereas in data sufficiency, the exact answer does not matter. If the exact answer is 50 and you get 49, you'll still mark a relevant option because you got a unique value. Whereas that doesn't work here. Okay? Point number one. Point number two, a lot of you, in fact, why you? A lot of us in a lot of situations end up making the mistake of solving a different question in our mind. Now, the question here is what was the total amount that Ben paid for the purchase? Right? That is the question you are trying to answer. A lot of you who said 400 answered a completely different question. Right? You answered a question which goes like this: what is the price of the item? Now, that's not the question that is asked here. You're trying to find out what is the amount that Ben paid. The total amount that Ben paid, guys, is the price of the item plus the tax. Remember this. So a lot of you who said C ended up solving a different question. You ended up finding the price, but the question doesn't ask you the price of the item. It asks you the total amount paid by Ben. And if you were Ben, you cannot get the item just by paying the price of the item. You have to pay the tax. Okay. Now, I'm pretty sure that all of you understood the price of the item is 400 by doing this. So you did 8% of the price minus 5% of the price is 12, from which you get the price of the item as 400. And that is the trap answer, right? That's why option C is 400. Now, at this stage, a few of you may have also thought about D. Okay, D is the next trap answer. This is the easiest trap that you can get into. D is the next trap. Okay, because you look at 5% and say, okay, the sales tax has become 5%. That is not so. This is a if clause. It's a hypothetical situation. You're looking at if the sales tax had been 5%, then he would have paid $12 less. Would have is also another clue. Okay. But the fact of the matter is the sales tax is still is 8%. So 8% would be 32. So total amount paid would be 432. So if you want to really hit the 51, you need to really make almost zero mistakes on problem solving questions. And for that to happen, you need to reduce the careless errors, the silly errors. The silly errors are a function of so many things. You don't know the concept, you made a calculation error, you try to solve a different question, you try to make assumptions, you did not understand the implication of the language. Okay, if and would have are telling you that this is a hypothetical situation, whereas this statement is telling that this is the actual situation. So if any of you marked D, right, you went with a hypothetical situation rather than going with the actual situation, right, which is something you cannot afford to do if you want to get that question right. All right. Another thing that I recommend is this is something that I do. Okay. When I read a question, I jot down the information. So I say, okay, the sales tax. As I read the first statement, I say sales tax is 8% of the price. When I do this, I've already taken care of this sentence. I don't even have to go back and read it again. Right. And then when I read the next statement, I say, okay, new sales tax. Had it been 5%, the difference between the two would be 12. Right. So I've taken care of this statement now. And I've done this, I've not wasted time in writing. I've written down as I read the question, right? So uh, it's all about multitasking in terms of saving time. And every second that you save will end up helping you on that really hard question where you require the 30 seconds more. All right? Make this a habit. Right from today, when you start solving Quant questions, as you read through the question, write down the information on your scratch paper. Okay? In a very neat way. Don't scribble. If you scribble and your handwriting is bad, it'll be a double whammy. If you make a mistake, you'll not be able to find out where you made a mistake. Right? Be methodical even in your solving. Right? So I hope that uh, was a takeaway for you. Uh, what is the next question and what is the learning from this? Go ahead, solve this question. I'll start 2 minutes. As far as possible, please hold on to your answers and post your answers when I ask you to post the answer. All right, guys. So that's time. That's 2 minutes. You can post your answers now. Go ahead and post your answers. Whatever answers you got. So I've just upped the ante in terms of the difficulty level. The first few questions were probably 600 sub 600 level questions, lesser than 600. This, according to me, a 600 to 700 level question. Okay, I see quite a few D's. I see a A. I see a C. The official answer, guys, on this question is D for Delta. Okay. Now, the reason why I put this question here is to tell you that a lot of us feel that if I want to get a Quant 51 on GMAT, I need to be really good at the 700 at solving the 700 plus level questions. Now, nothing can be farther from the truth, right? Because the GMAT algorithm works that way. It gives you almost equal number of questions from every difficulty level, right? It is not favorable to the 700 level questions. If that was the way, after a certain stage, you would only get 700 level questions. Okay, that's not how the algorithm works, and therefore you also need to give equal importance to 600 to 700 level questions. In fact, I feel you need to give more importance to 600 to 700 level questions because of two reasons. One, the language and the traps are very subtle. They have subtle traps. Second, your mindset is you're in the middle. You're saying, okay, this is neither too easy nor too difficult. If it's too easy, you know a way out, even if you're stuck. If it's too difficult, you're already starting with a mindset where you're careful not to lose out on any information. But with 600 to 700 level, sometimes the situation is you might end up overlooking some information, right? And the subtleness of the traps uh, increases compared to the sub 600 level questions, and that's where you have to be careful. Now, this question says a certain zoo has mammals, reptiles, birds, and no other animals. Now, there's an implication for this particular phrase. This tells you that the zoo has mammals, has reptiles, and has birds. Okay, these three are there. Along with these three, there are no other animals. Now, you might feel, okay, what kind of implication does this phrase have? Now, we need to understand that ratio problems on the GMAT test your knowledge of multiples of a certain number. So, looking at the ratio of mammals, reptiles, birds, you can make out that mammals are a multiple of 4, reptiles are a multiple of 3, and birds are a multiple of 7. Clearly, you cannot have 5 mammals. If you have 5 mammals, 4k will be equal to 5 and k will be equal to 1.25. You cannot have 3 into 1.25 reptiles. You cannot have fractional number of reptiles. And that's the reason why I'm telling a lot of ratio problems on GMAT where you are dealing with things like animals, people, something that you buy, fruits, will test your knowledge of multiples. Okay? Remember that 0, the number 0, is a multiple of every number. So you can say that 0 is a multiple of 4, 0 is a multiple of 3, and 0 is a multiple of 7 as well, right? But can I equate any of these numbers to 0? Clearly not, because the question says it has mammals, reptiles, birds, and no other animals. So none of these can be equated to 0. None of these can be 0. Okay, keep that in mind. Now, the first statement I think is fairly sufficient. The total number of mammals and birds in the zoo is 11, which means 4k plus 3k equal to 11. I can find out k from here. If I can find out k, I can find the sum of these three quantities. The first statement is definitely sufficient. Another thing that a Quant 51 scorer does is in a lot of DS questions, he does not go till the very end trying to find the exact answer. Don't find the exact answer. So the first statement is clearly sufficient. So out of the options A, B, C, D, E, because the first statement is sufficient, option B, option C, and option E are ruled out. There are fewer than 4 reptiles in the zoo, right? Now the reptiles are a multiple of 3. When I say there are fewer than 4 reptiles, I am looking at multiples of 3 which are lesser than 4. Multiples of 3 which are lesser than 4 are 0 or 3. But we already discussed that reptiles can't be 0. So therefore, they have to be 3 reptiles. So from the second statement, you know that 3k is 3. Can you find out k from here? Yes. If you can find out k, you can find the sum of these 3. So the second statement is also sufficient. Option A gets ruled out. Option D is the answer. So you see how subtle a trap this is. It's very easy to ignore this, right? You might feel, okay, it's just given as a part of the question, right? But it has an implication here. If you ignore this, you will probably interpret this as 0 or 3, and you'll say, okay, the first statement is sufficient, the second statement is not. All right. So keep in mind that as the difficulty level increases, the way traps are laid out can be diverse. Okay, and you need to take care of these traps. Okay. So we'll move on to the next question now, which is also a 600 to 700 level question. Go ahead. I'm starting your time now. 2 minutes. I probably gave you about 10-15 seconds more because I feel this is a word problem, very wordy. Therefore, I'm okay in giving you those 15-20 seconds extra. So if you think you have an answer, just hold on to your answers. I'll let you know when to post. Post it then. All right, guys. So that's time. You can go ahead and post your answers now. Let me see a few answers. So I got a D from Svetla. All right. So a couple of C's. Okay, a few more C's. Okay, so I'll not give out the answer here. So you can see what my message is after this question, right? It's not only for this question, but it is for all the 600 to 700 level questions. Okay. As you know, you start off the quant section with a 500 to 600 level question, a sub 600 level question. And it's obvious that the next few questions will come from the 600 to 700 level questions, right? They may be closer to 600, They may be closer to 650, they may be closer to 700, but they will all be 600 to 700 level questions, right? A lot of people who don't get a 51, who end up getting a 47, 48, 49, will probably not look at 600 to 700 level questions as their stepping stone to get to that 700 level. Okay, your graph has to go up, and for it to go up, you need to get the 600 to 700 level questions right. I can't emphasize more on this, right? Clearly, the 700 level questions have to be gotten right, but the algorithm has been designed probably in such a way that even if you make mistakes in your 700 level questions, okay, the algorithm will penalize you less. It's a way of incentivizing your ability to get to the 700 level questions, right? It recognizes that you got to that stage, you hit that level where you got an extremely difficult question, and it kind of accommodates for the fact that you can go wrong on that question, right? So no, absolutely no scope to make a mistake on the 600 to 700 level questions, because if you make a mistake, it'll downgrade your score, right? It perceives your inability to solve 600 to 700 level questions, and therefore it'll put you into that bracket, right? When you're in the 600 to 700 level bracket, when you end up with that score, you'll probably end up with a score of 46, 47, on maybe even a 48, right? Getting a 51 and being in the 600 to 700 level is very rare. I've not seen that happening too many times. Okay. Now, for this question, it's a lengthy question, wordy. I'll skip certain parts. So I don't want to worry about given week, the classical literature section in a certain library. I'll come straight away to 40 different books. So I know the library had 40 different books on Monday. If 50% of the books that were borrowed, now I don't know how many were borrowed, I'll probably take it as X. I'll probably take an algebraic approach here, right? So let's say borrowed were X. If X were borrowed, I would be left with 40 minus X. The question says 50% of the books that were borrowed during the week were returned to the library on or before Saturday morning of that same week. So on Saturday morning, half of this came back. Okay, so X by 2 came back. Remember, in the library, there were 40 minus X books still left. Okay. So these many books were left in the library on Saturday morning. Okay, because 50% of the books that were borrowed came back on or before Saturday morning, and these books were anyways there. Okay, so X by 2 plus 40 minus X, okay, should be less than or equal to 22, because it says at least 22 books. Now, if I simplify this, I'll get 40 minus X by 2 less than or equal to 22, because minus X plus X by 2 is minus X by 2. Now I transfer this onto this side, I transfer this onto this side, I'll get X by 2, right, is more than or equal to 40 minus 22. Am I right on this? More than or equal to or less than or equal to? So if I take X by 2 onto this side, will the inequality sign become more than or equal to or less than or equal? So this is a very common mistake that can happen, right? If you want to avoid this, just keep in mind that you're trying to find the greatest number of books, right? So if you don't want to do this step like this, you can still continue to do, okay, 40 minus 22 is less than or equal to X by 2, right? You can do this step, right? 18 is less than or equal to X by 2. And then you can come back to X by 2 more than or equal to 18, okay? Which means X is more than or equal to 36. Am I right on that? So what is the greatest number of books that could have been borrowed during the week? It has to be 40, right? The answer is A. So A is the trap answer because none of you realize that I slipped in a very common mistake that people do in terms of interpreting at least. At least is not less than or equal to. At least is more than or equal to. So remember some common translations. At least is, sorry, more than or equal to. At most, okay, is less than or equal to. All right. So this entire thing was a small mistake I slipped in. It seems like in the process of solving it, trying to solve it, none of you told me that this is wrong. Okay, and I slip in the mistake to tell you that this mistake can happen if it happened now. Okay, so just interchange this, and you'll see that all of the inequality signs will change. Okay, it becomes x less than or equal to 36. All right, I'll just rewrite the entire expression. It has to be 40 x by 2 plus 40 minus x less more than or equal to 22, because at least is more than or equal to 22. Okay, so be aware of the different translations. So at least is more than or equal to, at most is less than or equal to. You need to know all these things at the tip of your tongue, right? So this will be 40 minus x by 2 more than or equal to 22. So this will now become x by 2 less than or equal to 18, or x is less than or equal to 36. Okay. So you're looking at the greatest number of books. Okay, that is the clue. Even if you ended up getting x more than or equal to 36, you need to have an exit plan. You need to tell yourself that you're wrong. Okay, because if you're being asked the greatest number of books, x more than or equal to 36 means that x can be infinity. Clearly, infinity cannot be the greatest number of books. There were only 40 different books, right? That should be the point when you turn back and see, okay, where have I made a mistake? Right? That's how you get back quickly. If you've gone the wrong way, you get back to that point where you forked, the road forked, you took the wrong route, you come back to that point and quickly go the right route. Right? So the answer here is 36, option C. Sarthak, I think this is a question that I found on GMAT Club. I think the source was Veritas Web. I found this question to be uh, really interesting, really the right kind of 600 to 700 level question. That's why I put it on this slide. Okay, I hope it has given you certain pointers about what all you need to take care of in a 600 to 700 level question. In a 600 to 700 level question, concepts alone will not take you through. Strategies alone will not take you through. It has to be a good mix. Okay, at till a certain stage, use concepts. Beyond that stage, use strategies to eliminate options and zero in on the right answer. Right. All right, guys. This is probably the last 600 to 700 level question I have on my list. Yes, Mona, the answer for the previous question is C for Charlie. Yes. I hope all of you are ready for this question. Okay. Um, I'll start the timer now. 2 minutes. Go ahead. Think about a clue that I want to give you here is think about what is the underlying concept that you can use to solve this question. Sure, Satak. We'll cover your questions on strategies. Definitely. Thirty seconds more. All right, guys. So that's 2 minutes. Um, I think the official answer for this is C for Charlie. C for Charlie is the official answer for this. Now, when you look at such an expression, right, it's very natural to get overwhelmed by the size of the expression and feel, okay, how many terms do you think I need to take? If I look at the options, I'm someone who always looks at the options when I solve a question, right? And that's why I've put this point below, that somebody who scores very high on quant does not look at the question only from the point of view of the question. Remember that the options are a part of the question itself. And if you don't use the option to your advantage, you're missing out on a big piece of information, right? I'm somebody who uses the options. It comes to me naturally, right? Before even I start solving the question, I look at the options to see, okay, what kind of numbers am I dealing with? Am I dealing with very large numbers, small numbers, medium-sized numbers, or are they decimals, integers, so on and so forth, right? I also try to see, okay, if I'm dealing with multiples of 3 or multiples of 5, depending on the question. Okay. Here, the question is very clear. Which of the following could be equal to n? Right. So we're looking at a possible value for n. We're not even looking at a certain value for n. We're looking at a possible value for n. So a few of us will look at this expression and say, okay, let me add 77. Let's say twice or thrice. This is an approach that I've seen students taking. So 77 4 times. Clearly 77 5 times will exceed 350. So I'll not add 5 times. I'll take 4 times. This will probably give me 308, right? Sorry, 308. I'll be left with 42. So 42 can be 7 into 6, but clearly 4 plus 6 is 10. I don't even have a number in the range of 10 here, right? So this approach can be one of your approaches if you're somebody who likes to plug in. This could be the approach, but this will tell you that this approach is not feasible. It's probably not the best approach. The way I looked at this question is I framed an equation. I have 7, let us say x times, okay. I have, let us say, 77 y times. The question is very clear, saying that the terms are either 7 or 77. Okay. So I have, let's say, 7x times, 77 y times. I'm not even saying that x and y have to be positive integers. Okay. One of x and y can be 0. But I know that the sum of these two should give me 350. Now, what is n? N clearly is the number of terms. The number of terms is nothing but the sum of x and y. Okay. Now, because I'm looking at which of the following could be equal to n, remember that the options here are also talking about n, which means that they are talking of x plus y. Now, the easiest way you could look at is you could say, okay, x plus y, what if it is equal to 40? Why did I take 40? Two reasons. One, it's the easiest for me to deal with. Second, in the back solving approach is where you use options. You always start with C. 2 reasons why I started with option C. Now it becomes a very simple linear equation for me to solve. I'll multiply this by 7 so that I can eliminate x. Once I multiply this by 7, I can eliminate 7x, 7x. Right? This will become 7y. 77y minus 7y will give me 70y. 40 into 7 will give me 280. 350 minus 280 will give me 70. So y will be equal to 1. And if y equal to 1, x will be equal to 39. Right? Whereas if I pick, for example, for all of you who are curious, okay, 40 works just fine, but will 39 work? You can go ahead and check. So 7x plus 77y equal to 350. If you say x plus y equal to 39, you'll see that 7x and 7x will get cancelled. This will be 70y, but 70y will come out to be 350 minus 39 into 7. 39 into 7 is 273. 350 minus 273, right, is how much? 77. 70y equal to 77. So y equal to 1.1. Clearly, I cannot have 1.1 terms. Okay. That is what will happen with 38, 41, and 42. So you need to learn how to use the options to your advantage. You can't have a one-dimensional approach all the time. You can't say, okay, I will solve from the question to the answer. Sometimes you need to solve it backwards. Okay, that's where you take the help of the options, the way I did. Okay, I hope this is clear. And this is especially useful for you when there's a question where you know you've hit a roadblock beyond a certain stage. You're not able to proceed using the mathematical way. Right? That is when you clearly drop your bag and say, okay, I'm not able to proceed any further. Let me try a different approach using options and see whether the option approach works. Otherwise, you'll end up spending a lot of time on certain questions, which will kind of jeopardize your time on the other questions. Once time is out of your hands, it's very hard to get it back, and it's very hard to not make many mistakes. I hope this is clear. The right answer for this question, guys, is option C. The official answer is also C. All right. So this is the last segment, guys. I'll probably take another 10 minutes on this. Okay. This is the next question that I have. Go ahead, solve this, and tell me what you feel about this. 2 minutes. If you get an answer, hold on to your answer. Right, Shreyas. I like your approach on the previous question. That's right. I agree with you. Okay, that's a minute more. Thirty seconds more. All right, guys, that's time. 2 minutes. Okay, I see a couple of D's. I see a couple of A's. Sometimes in data sufficiency, although the exact answer is not required, you may have to go uh, till a very tertiary stage, right, and not make your decision at the initial stages. Okay. Before doing that, it's always a good idea to spend time on the question statement and the question stem. The question stem is this. Okay. Now, if I were you, I'd probably take a few values for n because I know n is a positive integer. I'll probably take n equal to 1. If I take n equal to 1, the expression will be 1 factorial and it will have um, 1 as the unit digit. Okay. If I take n equal to 2, I'll probably have 1 factorial plus 2 factorial, that is 1 plus 2 equal to 3. So I understand from this that the unit digit of the expression in turn depends on the value of n, right? But I should not restrict myself to finding out the value of n alone. I should go ahead and see what the unit digit actually is if I substitute n. So for example, if I say n equal to 3, I'll have 1 factorial, 2 factorial, plus 3 factorial, which is 1 plus 2 plus 6, that is 9. N equal to 4, 1 factorial, 2 factorial, so on till 4 factorial. So that would be 1 plus 2 plus 6 plus 24, that is 33. So my last digit is 3. Now I also need to bring in my knowledge of factorial concept and understand that any number beyond 5 factorial and above, right, will always end with a number that is 0. 5 factorial is 120, 6 factorial is 720. Any factorial above 5 will all equal to or above 5 will always end with 0. So therefore, I don't have to break my head about n being 5 or more. Okay. With this in mind, I'll go ahead with the first statement. The first statement says n is divisible by 4, which means n is 0 or 4 or 8 or 12 and so on. So you observe here how I brought in the 0 just to reinforce the fact that 0 is a multiple of every number. Now, because the question says n is a positive integer, I will remove it from the list. So I know that n is 4 or 8 or 12 and so on. Right? If I take n equal to 4, I know the unit digit is 3. But when n is equal to 8, I know that the unit digit will still be 3 because 5 factorial and above, nothing is contributed to the unit digit. So I know if n is equal to 4, the last digit is 3. Here also it is 3. Here also it is 3. So just because you got different values for n, you should not conclude at this stage that you will not get a last digit. Sometimes you will have to go ahead and prove that it is sufficient. You'll have to try and find out what exactly the question is asking. Okay, don't abort at a premature stage. Okay, go till the very end. So the first statement is definitely sufficient. So my answers at this stage are A or B, alpha or delta. Correct? I'll just clear the screen so that I can use the second statement. I can use the space for the second statement. Now, n square plus 1 by 5 is an odd integer. Now, what does this mean? You can type in your answers. I want a few answers about what you feel this will tell you about n or n square, let's say. What do you think this statement is telling you about n square? A lot of you will say n square is odd, right? Or rather, n square is even, right? A lot of you will say this. Whereas I have a different way of looking at this. Because I'm trying to find the last digit, I will try to find the last digit. So n square plus 1, n square plus 1. What is 5 into odd? 5 into odd will be an odd multiple of 5. And I know that odd multiple of 5 always ends with 5. So I know n square plus 1 is a number ending with 5. From this, I know that n square is not only even. N is even is a very generic piece of information, right? You cannot glean anything out of it. Whereas when you say n square is a perfect square ending with 4, it tells you that n ends with 2 or ends with 8. So that should tell you that n can be 2 or 8 or 12 or 18 and so on. When n is 2, the last digit of the expression given to you will be 3. From the previous statement, we know that when n is 8, the last digit will be 3. When n is 12, the last digit will be 3 and so on. Okay? So you need to be sometimes specific in what you are trying to find out. Don't be generic. Right? You will have to go down till that very last level. So the second statement alone is also sufficient to say that the last digit is unique regardless of the value of n being different. That is the reason why the second statement alone is also sufficient. We already know that the first statement is sufficient. The answer is D for delta. The official answer for this is D for delta. That's the right answer, not A. A is the trap answer. So A is the trap answer for all of you who did not go till the very end in this statement. Okay, you need to sometimes spend time. If you feel you need to spend those 25-30 seconds extra to go till the last, do it. It is going to be worth it. All right. This is probably my last question for today, guys. Go ahead, solve this. So I'm giving you 2 minutes. Right, Shamik. I mean, that's the reason why you're on this live session, and that's the reason why I'm here. Right. Uh, I'm here to give those specific things that we don't generally think. Right. I'm including myself. And that's what your preparation should aim at. You need to learn those specific things. Okay. Now, since we have run out of time on this, guys, I'll just give you a clue on this. Okay. The official answer for this question is option B. And the clue that I want to give you is look at the question statement, okay, and don't ignore the question statement, the question data. Look at the question stem and try to make an equation or an inequality from the question stem. Now, I have 8 people from which I want to form a committee of 2 people. Okay, so my sample space or the total possible outcomes will be 8C2. I'll quickly work out 8C2 here. 8C2 is 8 into 7 by 2, right? which is 28. So I know my denominator is 28. Now, out of 8 people, let us say there are X men, pun intended, Y women. Okay. So my sample space, I want the probability that the selected people are both men. So I need XC2. Now remember, XC2 is X into X minus 1 by 2. You need to remember such specific things. So this is your XC2. Okay. XC2 by 28. So is it more than 1 by 4? Okay. XC2 is X into X minus 1 whole divided by 2. So this becomes X into X minus 1 by 56 more than 1 by 4. X into X minus 1 is more than 14. So the question that I'm actually trying to answer is X more than 4? That is the question I'm trying to answer. Okay. Because only when X is more than 4, the product of these two numbers will become more than 14. If X is equal to 4, 4 into 3 will be 12, which is not more than 14. Okay. Is X more than 4 is the question I'm trying to answer. The first statement is clearly insufficient. 40% of the employees, more than 40% of the employees are men, which means the number of men is more than 3.2. Therefore, X can be equal to 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8. If X equal to 4, I'll answer this question with a no. If X is equal to 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, I'll answer the question with a yes. So the first statement alone is insufficient. B, C, and E are my answers, right? At this stage. This statement can be treated similar to this. The probability that both the selected people will be women is more than 20%. Okay, I'll just erase this. Let's say YC2 by 28 is more than 1 by 5. Okay, so that means I'll quickly run through this. You already know this expression. Y into Y minus 1 by 56 is more than 1 by 5. So Y into Y minus 1 has to be more than 11.2, which means Y has to be more than 3. Because if Y equal to 3, then 3 into 2 will be 6, which is not more than 11.2. Therefore, you can have either 4 women or 5 women, 6 women, 7 women, or 8 women. Therefore, the number of men will be 4 or 3 or 2 or 1 or 0. This is your number of men. So the number of men can be 4 or 3 or 2 or 1 or 0 according to the second statement. Now ask yourself, is X more than 4? Clearly, your answer will be a no. Look at no also as a right answer. So the second statement alone is sufficient. B. So when you DK, there can't be 0 men, it's not mentioned anywhere. Okay, it just says which includes some women and rest are men. Now the meaning of the word some, if you look at it in the dictionary, is an unspecified amount. So there is no condition that some means 0. It has to be more than 0. There is no condition like that in math. Okay. So when you are facing the data sufficiency question with a lot of data in the question, use it. A Quant 51 scorer always knows how to use that information to his advantage, to convert it to an equation or an inequality which tells him or her what to look for in the statements. Now, clearly in this question, I was looking for this, right? So, quickly summarizing what you need to do if you want to get a Quant 51, you need to have a very strong foundation. You need to learn the concepts, the rules, the different attributes, the different ways notations are used in GMAT Quant. You need to learn specific strategies that are tested on the GMAT. For example, harmonic progression is not tested on the GMAT. Geometric progression is not tested on the GMAT at a very advanced stage. So there's no point in breaking your head about those formulae, right? Whereas The concept of odds and evens are tested extensively on the GMAT, right? So you need to learn GMAT specific concepts and strategies related to a particular topic. And of course, there's no prize for guessing that you have to practice as many questions as you can on every topic, right? Until you have achieved at least 90% accuracy rate on that topic. 90% or more is the accuracy rate that you need to have if you want to hit a Quant 51, right? During the test, when you're solving the questions, make effective use of your scratch paper. Jot down information as you read the question. It'll save you time. If required, visualize the question and make a sketch of it. This applies especially in geometry. I do this a lot in permutation, combination, probability. I also do this in time and distance. Okay, I make a sketch of the question. Have backup plans. If one approach doesn't work, one strategy doesn't work, try another strategy. Don't make it an ego problem. Last but not the least, have an exit plan. Have a way of guessing one of the answer and moving ahead, right? And don't ever try to analyze how the algorithm is working, right? Just because you got a super hard question, don't assume that you have done all the questions till then, right? Don't try to wrap your brain around the algorithm. Just try to solve the question on your screen, right? That should be your most important objective at that point in time, okay? And have 3 or 4 checkpoints for time management, right? Don't keep looking at the clock. Always say, okay, after 62 minutes, I'll probably look at the clock maybe at 45 minutes. After that, maybe at 20, 27 or 28 minutes. After that, maybe at 10 minutes, right? Between these checkpoints, your objective should be to look at the question and try your best to solve. Your brain should not be on the clock, right? Because if your time management goes out of your hand, you will not be able to get a 51 on Quant, right? So with this, guys, I think I'll have to call it a day. We have a free resource for all of you who are on this webinar. The GMAT Quant basics course from our side, Crack Verbal's GMAT Quant basics course. We are offering you for free of cost, 100% off. You can use the bit.ly link. This will again be provided to you by our moderators. You can go ahead and use this coupon code, this bit.ly link, click on it. You'll be eligible to get this Quant Basics course free of cost. All right. We also have some other resources like our YouTube channel and our blogs. You can go ahead and access any of these without having to pay a penny. All right. So I'll probably open up 5 minutes of this session for any questions that you have. Sarthak, strategy, by strategies I mean for problem solving questions. Let's say, for example, my strategies are I eliminate options as far as I can at the start, okay? And when there are a lot of variables, I plug in values, plug in simple values like multiples of 5 or 100 if I have percentages. If I have fractions, I plug in the LCM of the denominators. Okay, this is called the plugging in strategy. I also use options. Okay, when you have a must be, could be question, the strategy is if you have a must be question, you always try to prove the opposite. And if you have a could be question, you always try to prove what is asked. So there are a lot of such strategies that you need to adopt. GMAT Quant is not a test of your GMAT Quant is not a test of your math alone. In fact, GMAT Quant is not a test of math. It's called quantitative reasoning for a reason, right? There's a lot of reasoning involved. So you need to have a lot of these logical ways of solving a question. Anand, the questions needed to the number of correct answers for a 50 can vary anywhere from 3 to 6. Beyond that, I think you'll hit a 49. If you end up getting more than 8 questions wrong, I don't think you'll get a 49. Okay. So if you're getting a 49 right now, it means that you're probably stumbling on the slightly difficult questions on problem solving and data sufficiency in certain areas. If you have made an error log, go back to the error log, and see what kind of questions you're getting wrong. See if you can see a pattern. Very often in quant, there are certain areas like permutations, combinations, probability, rates, time and work, time and distance, number systems. For some people, geometry. For some people, inequalities. These are the areas that a lot of people face difficulty in, especially in the higher end of the difficulty spectrum. Uh, Analyze what is going wrong with your questions, what kind of questions you're getting wrong, and try to see if you know the concept required to solve that question. If not, try to revise those concepts. Should one skip on a difficult question soon rather than spending time on it if I don't get it right in the end, since we can't skip the question? I would not think of skipping a question before 2 minutes. Okay. Uh, I will try all that I can in the 2 minutes. Uh, and the kind of work that I would have done in these 2 minutes will probably give me a segue into understanding what could be the answer. That'll help me in guessing the answer if I have to. But I will never skip a question. Any other questions, guys? Siddharth, I'm really very sorry, man, but I don't believe in the philosophy of best. I could probably tell you a few sources that I feel are good. Okay, clearly, our quant course is very good, right? The way in which we have structured our videos, our quant online course is really good. Classroom courses, I'm a quant faculty myself, as you know. I hope you got an idea of how I teach, and I hope you got an idea of the quality of teaching. Clearly, the quality of content is also visible to you in the PPT, right? So our course is definitely up there for quant, of course, for verbal as well. I'll also probably recommend the Manhattan GMAT course, which I feel is a good one. Okay, these are the two at the top of my mind. Apart from that, using the official content is key to getting a great score on the GMAT. That goes unsaid. Shamik, when you say does this quant course for a month, you mean the basics course? I'm really sorry, I did not prepare for this question. You would, I think, you'll have access for about a month on this quant basics course, if I'm right. But I'm really very sorry, I did not prepare for this question. All right, Ajay, does just doing a lot of questions, especially 700 plus level, improve the quant score from a 48 to 50? I think, Ajay, I already answered this question, right, during the webinar multiple times. That it's not about the number of questions that you solve. It's not just about solving 700 plus level questions. Okay. Is permutation and combination a game changer for above Q50? Maybe, but I feel probability is a bigger game changer. That's what I've seen in a lot of GMAT in a lot of GMAT attempts that my students have taken. I think the probability questions above 700 are harder, whereas the number of permutation combination questions above 700 are probably lesser. But definitely PMC is a game changer because it gives you a lot of 600 to 700 level questions. Sarthak, for someone who has just started preparing for GMAT, would you suggest that the aspirant takes up topics individually or learn topics through application of problems? It has to be a combination of both, Sarthak. You learn topics first and then apply them. Um, Kranti, when you say advanced scores for people scoring 47, 49, I feel you can take up personal tutoring, and for people who take up personal tutoring, we do end up offering a certain set of questions that we feel are 700 plus level. Sarthak, I did not understand the Sarthak's question. I hope I have answered your question on preparing for the GMAT. You got 31 questions in Quant for GMAT. What is 49 on 50? Mohak, I'm really very sorry. I don't think any one of us can answer that despite having 15 years of experience. Because 49 or 50, how it is calculated is completely proprietary information. It is known only to GMAC. Okay, how they calculate it, we don't know. It is calculated by the algorithm. That's how they have designed the algorithm. And how 49 or 50 is scaled up to, let us say, a 700, also we don't know. Source for official questions of the GMAT of important topics, your best source is official guide and the quant review book. Okay. I also told you that you have the advanced book that has come out. You can also try that. All right. So I hope I've answered most of your questions, guys. I thank you all for being such a wonderful audience, if I may use that word. So till I see you again, maybe on another quant webinar. Bye to all of you. Thanks for joining in, and see you again maybe on another quant webinar, guys.